Hi guys, SDJRSNF88 speaking, with the first update on the Garden Railway for 2016. Now, as you know, the last time I ran the railway was back in late September last year, and since then the railway's really been in hibernation. So in this video we're going to take a look at some of the things that have happened to the layout during its first winter of hibernation, and of course a few little things that I plan to do to the railway this year. So without further ado, let's get right onto it. One thing I was really worried about during the winter hibernation period is the weeds. Now, as you know, during the summer running last year, occasionally when there was a bit of rain, these weeds would spring up absolutely everywhere. And of course, leaving it for such a long period of time, nearly 6 months, I was really worried that the track would be absolutely infested with these blighters. But I'm quite pleased to see that there's not very many at all. There are a few, as you can see here. This is the embankment leaving the passing loop, and the other area affected is the cutting where it comes off the suspension bridge. The embankment around the front by the lighthouse, that is not affected at all, amazingly. I suppose that is because there is quite a height difference between the soil below and the track above, and it's really filled in with lots and lots of sort of rubble, hardcore, and of course this ballast. But here there's a good couple of inches of ballast before you get to the soil, but these weeds are real blighters, and the bulbs have obviously been in the soil when we put the ballast down, and they've grown up through. And the thing is, you can't pull them out, because as soon as you pull them out they sort of snap off halfway down, and then of course a couple of weeks later when there's a bit of rain they pop back up again. So I've had to resort to using a bit of weed killer. Now, I didn't really want to use weed killer, one because we're right by the edge of the pond, so I have to be very, 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 very careful, and of course I don't want to get any on the track itself. So I've got this special spray, and I've been using it very, very sparingly, just precisely on the weeds themselves. I have to be very careful on the few that have grown up in between the rails. I'm not sure if you can see, there's one right sort of that area that's I've snapped off, but there is one there. Yeah, I've been very sparing with it. I did it about a week ago, and they've started to go slightly yellow, so it shows that it is working. They did say it would take about 28 days for it to work fully and the weed to fully die off, maybe longer. But of course, weather like this, we're very lucky today. I've got a bit of free time, hence filming this update, and of course it's beautiful weather, and I'd rather be actually trying to get the layout ready to run, and of course running it itself and trying some of the new stock on it. Yeah, so if the weeds do take a bit longer to die off, I might try resort to pulling them out again. By this time, by digging back the ballast and trying to find the source of the problem. But nevertheless, it's not as bad as what I thought it is. So it's all pretty good on that front. Whilst on the subject of weeds, the planned pondside siding has, as you can see, has sort of returned to nature. The weeds have really come back in that area. Though when we do hopefully plan to add the siding this year, finally get round to adding it, I'm going to do it a bit differently, and something I should have really done from the start when laying the main track bed, and that is to add a plastic sheet underlay. That will hopefully stop the weeds from growing up and getting hold in the ballast and then growing up through constantly. This is something we'll definitely have to do in this area due to the close proximity of the track to the pond, and of course I can't really use weed killer in that area, and of course it's just, I don't really want to use weed killer at all really. I just want it to be weed free most of the time, and the plastic sheet idea is really the best way forward, and a lot of garden railway modelers have recommended it, and it's something we should have really done from the start. So that will be the plan for that area. So once that is all cleared again and we get all the bulbs out, as many as possible, we'll then raise put the sort of some wooden slats on the edge, because the track bed has to be raised, and then we'll put the plastic sheet in behind the slats, and then we'll basically do what we've done with the rest of the track, which has worked out really, really well and has provided a solid build. So put some stakes in the ground, screw the track to it, and then of course fill it with the ballast. A little something else that we need doing before operation is a touch of painting. Now, I knew that there would be a few other things apart from weeds that would happen over the winter months with all the rain and the frosts and stuff. And one thing is the bridges need a bit of painting. This is the bridge over the front of the flower bed. in front of the pond, and of course the suspension bridge deck is much the same. Because the decks are perfectly flat, the water really doesn't have anywhere to drain off to. You can see that it's taken its toll on the paintwork. Now the bridges are made from old scaffolding planks, and I know they are not the most durable of woods to leave out in the weather, so they really do need as much protection as possible. So as you can see, the paint's come off around here, the black paint. So what I plan to do is get some weather coated black paint and recoat all the decks of both bridges, and that should hopefully prolong the life of the wood. As you know, it's best to do it now rather than leaving it and the wood become rotten, and then of course the whole bridge will need replacing, which is a major task. So I'd rather do it now, get it all done and out of the way, and of course it will keep the prolong the life of the bridge. Moving on now, I plan to talk about a few changes that I plan to make to the layout this year. Of course, the first is the pondside siding. That really needs adding, but one of the other main things I plan to do is actually get this passing loop operating as a passing loop. As you know, I was a bit disappointed when I realised that G-scale points don't isolate like 00 scale points. And of course this means that the passing loop seen here is pretty much, well, pointless as a passing loop. So what I've done is I've ordered a few bits and bobs along with some track cleaning, extra track cleaning accessories to hopefully make this an isolating section of track, which means I will be able to pass two trains here finally. Now I am doing this a bit on a budget. I'm going to see if it will work, as I do plan to add a few more sidings, which I'll discuss in a moment. So I noticed that the switch boxes, they're around 60 to 70 pounds, well 50, 60, 70 pounds ish, and you tend to get about 4 switches on there, and I'm thinking of possibly maybe having more than that. So, I will need 2 switches to use just to operate this passing loop alone, and if I want to include the pondside siding and this other siding, which I'll come on to in a minute, it will mean that I will be using more than that. So I've decided that I'm going to go down a bit of a budget route with this. Now it's quite simple really. All you have to do is remove one of the fish plates at each end on one section of rail on each row of track, if you know what I mean. So this pair of points here, if I get my hand in shot there, I'll remove the fish plate on the inner rail there, and the same at the other end, and then that one there, and then that one there. Replace it with an isolating fish plate. That will leave one rail on each section of track dead. I will then connect up a wire to that, those dead rails, which will then go to a switch box, which will then go to the controller, and when I flip the switch, it will provide power to that section of track, in theory, and then the train will run. So that's the idea. I've been looking at diagrams, wiring diagrams, and getting used to the whole idea of doing this, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it shouldn't be too hard. Now, as I mentioned, I plan to do it on a bit of a budget, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try it out first with some Hornby flip switches. Basically, it's just an on-off switch. I know they are not designed for the garden, but then again, I don't run the railway during rain or when it's damp anyway, so it really won't really make a difference. And I plan to create like a little control box which I can take outside, which makes wiring up, as I mentioned, all the wires are not outside, a bit quicker and simpler. So a plank of wood with the controller mounted to this plank of wood, and of course the row of switches. And the good thing about the Hornby switches, if they do work, they're not too expensive, so I could experiment. If they don't work, I could then maybe invest in a LGB or a Pico or Pico switch box. But the good thing about the Hornby ones is you can extend them, so you can just add on and clip them on, and so the more sidings you get, the more switches you could potentially add. So if that idea works, we'll have a fully operational passing loop, and of course a potential for adding more sidings in the future. And whilst on the subject of extra sidings, there are I'm toying around with ideas of adding an extra siding or extra couple of sidings in this area. Now, as I mentioned, I found that Pico points don't line up or are not the same length as a curve, but from what I've heard from other G-scale modelers, that maybe LGB points will fit in the first radius sections. And if this is the case, I'll put a pair of points in where I'm pointing now, and we'll have a straight run of track coming off through here, into the flower bed here, which is mostly weeds at the moment, and then I'm maybe thinking about having maybe a little engine shed, which will include 2 runs of track, so it'll split off into another siding, a bit like a passing loop, but without the rejoining in at the end. So just 2 little sidings, and maybe even a sort of homemade engine shed. As I mentioned, my grand loves building stuff with wood, anything to really sort of pass the time by. He really enjoys it, and I think maybe building an engine shed instead of a bird box, as you've seen, he's done an amazing job with the bridges, so maybe I thought he might like to try his hand at maybe building a little engine shed to go there. Of course, the potential of having a siding there is quite close to the main passing loop, so it should be easy to isolate like the passing loop, and with the added switches, this should all hopefully work. But also, there has been talks, I know, with a fellow YouTuber regarding live steam visiting the line at some point in the future, maybe this year, maybe next year. And I thought maybe this siding could potentially be used as a steam up siding, as with live steam locomotives, they do require a bit of work to get them going, and I thought it'd be a nice little area maybe to sort of have like a little extra long siding where a live steam locomotive could be fired up at the end, and make it a bit more simpler to operate. So this is all an idea, but again, the main things that we'll need doing this year is, of course, getting the passing loop fully operational, getting the track back to operating standards, and of course, adding the pondside siding, which I've been meaning to add last year. So apart from that, I think that's really all the things that I plan to do this year. But before we finish this update, there has been one major change to the layout, as something that is, something quite nice, really. And I managed to get round to doing, in fact, in the pouring rain while I added it. But the suspension bridge now is fitted with lights. I've got the idea from Clifton's suspension bridge, again, much like the bridge design itself. And after Christmas, as you know, in the January sales, you get quite a lot of Christmas lighting and decorations, pretty much half price. And just really the garden centres, shops really want to get rid of them. Anyway, I popped into my local garden centre, and they had some outdoor lighting, fully waterproof, designed for all-round use, just white lighting, and it was half price, down from, I think it was from £24 for 8 metres or something like that, maybe more, down to about £12, and really fully waterproof. It just made sense just to get it, and it just seemed an idea just to give it a try. Anyway, I got back straight away in the rain and started wiring it all up. It plugs straight into one of the outdoor waterproof sockets, which is great, and amazingly there is just enough to do the chains along the top, down each of the towers, under the deck, up the other side, along the chain, and back down and under the deck on the other side, to get to the wall socket, and it fits absolutely perfect. There is a slight half-metre runoff, which is curled up under a rock, but it's all LED, so it's all nice and cool, nothing gets hot, and it's all in a brilliant waterproof casing, and it works absolutely fine. So I will finish this video off with a clip of the lighting in action at night. So hopefully you enjoyed this update. Hopefully more to come this year, and of course some running, hopefully, fingers crossed, very soon. I'll do another update when I've done all the little changes like the weeding and the repainting of the deck, which will hopefully be in the not too distant future. So anyway, this has been SDJR, SNF88 speaking, and thanks for watching.